This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Ethiopia launches its first satellite into space. South Sudan recalls its envoy to the US over increased sanctions. And French President Emmanuel Macron starts his tour of West Africa. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Karen Roberts, live in Nairobi. Uche Okoronkwo joins me now with all your business headlines.
Thanks, Karen. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live. US analysis of the attack on Saudi oil facilities points to Iran. And South African sisters making waves in the male-dominated diamond sector. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you.
Thank you very much, Uche. Well, let's begin in Ethiopia. The country is celebrating a milestone after it launched its first satellite into space. The satellite was developed by the China Academy of Space Technology in collaboration with 21 Ethiopian scientists. China also injected $6 million. That's out of a total of $7 million for development of the project. CGTN's Giram Challa reports now from Taiyuan in China, where the satellite was launched.
Simply a once-in-a-lifetime historic moment for Ethiopians. The first ETRSS-1 remote sensing satellite is now in orbit. It is from here, China's Taiwan Satellite Launching Center, that Ethiopia has managed to send one of its own to orbit. The Ethiopian delegation has witnessed the overwhelming moment.
I don't know if there is enough words to express my feeling. The only thing I can say is that when I saw our satellite going up, I was in tears.
Back home, millions have watched the launching on TV, and at the Addis Ababa Entoto Observatory Center, many have gathered for a special celebration. This has given hope for rapid growth in space science in Ethiopia.
The most important thing is that this is the first chapter in the space science technology for Ethiopia. I think it also symbolizes the significant partnership Ethiopia enjoys with China.
Right after the launch, Ethiopia's Space Science Institute said ETRSS-1 has already started delivering footages and data as intended.
The control station of Ndoto is shown the first image, and starting from now, then we'll proceed to use the application for the end users of the satellite.
ETRSS-1, the most important and first Ethiopian satellite, has been launched through the collaborative work of Chinese and Ethiopian engineers. China has also allowed its most famous launching center to complete this job. Group Data CGTN, Taiwan Satellite Launching Center, China.
Back home in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, a ceremony to watch the launch was led by the Deputy Prime Minister, Demeke Mekonnen. CGTN's Coletta Wanjoe was there.
History in the making for Ethiopia as it goes into space. The satellite launched in China cost over $7 million, with $6 million provided by China.
China's economy has developed at a nearly double-digit growth, and there are many lessons learned. And an important one, is to capitalize on new technologies, to ride the tide of modern technologies like space technology, digital economy.
Ethiopia says the 70-kilogram satellite is primarily for monitoring the environment and studying weather patterns. It is designed to help improve agricultural planning, provide early warnings for droughts, and assist in mining activities and forestry management.
The satellite will be monitored from Ethiopia, and the control center has been set up here in Addis Ababa at the Ethiopia Satellite Observatory.
Dinaol Zelalem is one of at least 10 satellite control engineers who will be monitoring it 24 hours a day.
The satellite can take the photo of Ethiopian land, and then that photo is stored on the server. Then the expert on the ground can add a value on the photo or the data. Then it interpret, analyze, and then add a value. Then finally give to the end user, like agricultural sector, like water sector, like the forestry.
This is the third East African satellite. Kenya's was launched in 2018 and Rwanda's in September this year. In May, Ethiopia signed an agreement with China to build another one for communication and broadcast. It has also reached a deal with French space company Ariane Group to start the construction of satellite manufacturing, assembly, integration and testing facilities. From now on, the government says space is the limit. Coletta Njohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
South Sudan is recalling its ambassador to the US. This comes after the US Treasury placed 2 senior government officials under sanctions. President Salva Kiir's advisor called the sanctions unconstructive to the peace process. CGTN's Patrick Hoyt has more.
The U.S. sanctioned 2 South Sudanese cabinet ministers this week. Washington says the 2 are responsible for what it describes as expanding or extending the conflict in South Sudan. The U.S. Treasury Department accuses South Sudan's Defense Minister Kual Manyang of failing to remove military forces from the battlefield as agreed. It accuses Minister of Cabinet Affairs Martin Elia Lomuro of recruiting and organizing local militias to conduct attacks against opposition forces. It says the 2 South Sudanese ministers are also obstructing the reconciliation process and peace talks. However, South Sudan's government says the sanctions against the 2 cabinet ministers are not justified. It further says the 2 ministers have been supportive of the peace process in the country. Juba says sanctions against the people of South Sudan is a sanction against the whole country and is a sanction against peace itself. South Sudan has now recalled its ambassador to the United States to protest the sanctions.
This is a normal thing. An ambassador under any circumstances can be called by his government at any time for briefing and directives so that he can toe the line planned by the government.
Some of the South Sudanese leaders the U.S. government has sanctioned include Deputy Defense Minister Malek Robin Riak, former Army Chief of Staff General Paul Malong Awan, Information Minister Michael Makwelweth, and Lajor State Governor Gathoth. The U.S. Ambassador in South Sudan, Thomas Hashek, says Washington will continue to impose sanctions on individual leaders if they do not implement the revitalized peace agreement as planned. Patrick Koyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Let's now turn to Libya, where tensions continue to rise. The Eastern Libyan National Army has announced planned airstrikes on the city of Misrata. The strikes will target sites allegedly storing Turkish weapons and military equipment. The troops are led by General Khalifa Haftar. For months, troops loyal to Haftar have been fighting to gain control of Tripoli. But the UN-backed government has been fighting back.
The targeting of Misrata will continue daily without interruption. It will be intense and in an unprecedented way. It will continue day and night if Misrata does not withdraw its militia from Tripoli and Sirte within a maximum of 3 days. They have until 12 midnight on Sunday.
Well, we are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including leaders from the Economic Community of West African states to meet in Abuja on Saturday. And a South African court awards damages to family that lost son in a school pit latrine.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
For a look at some economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
From Nairobi's city center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, Abidjan. This is his first stop of a visit to several West African nations. He's set to meet French soldiers in Côte d'Ivoire and later hold talks with local leaders. Rising insecurity in the Sahel is the main reason behind Macron's visit. Here's CGTN's Stefan de Vries with President Macron's itinerary.
French President Emmanuel Macron's first stop in Côte d'Ivoire is a visit to the French troops on the French base in Abidjan for the traditional Christmas dinner. France is looking to improve its ties with Côte d'Ivoire, and the official visit also includes economic and cultural elements. On Sunday, Macron will go to Niamey, the capital of Niger, to meet his counterpart Mahamadou Issoufou, the president of Niger. The reason for this impromptu visit is the growing terrorist threat in the region. Over the last couple of weeks, attacks against military and civilian targets have increased. And only last week, 71 soldiers from Niger were killed in one of the deadliest attacks in years. It's a busy schedule for the French president on his two-country trip to West Africa this weekend. Stefan de Vries, CGTN, Paris.
A summit of leaders of the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, is set to kick off this Saturday. The meeting is being held in Abuja in Nigeria. It comes against a backdrop of rising insecurity in the Sahel region. Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso have been worst hit as militants allied to Al-Qaeda and ISIL escalate their activities. Well, CGTN's Deji Badmus is monitoring this and he now joins us live from Lagos. Deji, how many leaders have confirmed their attendance and what do you think is going to be on at the top of the agenda?
Well, Karen, we do not have the details of the number of leaders. I mean, the actual confirmation now, that detail is not out. How many of them would be attending? Who has actually confirmed they would be attending? But the expectation is that almost all of the leaders, the sub-regional leaders now would attend this meeting because it's very crucial. It's the last meeting of the ECOWAS leaders for 2019. And top on the agenda of this meeting would be a discussion now on the action plan for regional security. The last time they had this summit in Burkina Faso, they came up with a decision. They decided that they were going to support the effort now to take on the jihadis who have been troubling the Sahel and some part of the Sahara now. They pledged about $1 billion. So this meeting is supposed to discuss the financing mechanism. So it's very important. It's at this meeting now that the details of how that money would be raised, who would contribute what, and how much each person now or each country would contribute would be discussed at this meeting. So it's very important, very crucial, because the situation of security in the Sahel, not just in the Sahel, even in the Sahara, is quite dire. So the expectation is that virtually all of the leaders would be attending this meeting. Besides, they would also be discussing economic issues, especially relating to the single currency. That's the ECOWAS single currency.
Well, going back to the insecurity situation, obviously that is the most important item on the agenda. What kind of commitments should we expect, do you think, from this meeting?
Well, this time we expect to see very serious commitment. We do not expect to see just pledges. We expect to see pledges made and those pledges redeemed, because in the past the leaders did not show serious commitment, and that's partly one of the reasons why, for instance, the G5 Sahel force has not been very effective, and it's the reason why militancy it's growing rapidly in the region. Burkina Faso and Mali are now in the eye of the storm. They're facing very serious difficulties. Mali especially, as well as Burkina Faso, of course. There's a threat that part of those countries now would be overrun by these jihadists if the leaders do not move quickly. And the good thing is that the leaders have realized how important it is for them to move very quickly, and that's the reason why they've decided to pledge this $1 billion. Now, how quickly the money comes in would determine what difference will be made on the ground in terms of the fight now against these jihadists. So it's a very serious situation, and I do not think the leaders are taking this with kid gloves at all. We expect to see some very serious commitments, and we also expect to see that whatever commitment is made at this meeting, that they will be followed through. So we expect to see those pledges that have been made. We expect to see the redemption of those pledges, unlike what we had in the past when pledges were made, they were never redeemed, and things have now gotten worse.
Well, Deji, in addition to insecurity, you did mention the economy just then. Calls are rising for the region to change its CFA currency, or its West African currency. How urgent is this, according to conversations within the region?
Well, that's quite urgent. As a matter of fact, it's one of the reasons some experts have said has actually delayed talks on, the talks now on the single currency, that one of the reasons why we've actually, what we've seen so far will be motion without movement is part of, the decision now, or, the effort by these French-speaking countries now to delink their currency from the CFA, but we'll wait and see what happens. But beyond that, Karen, beyond that, another very important issue with the ECOWAS single currency is the convergence criteria. At the last meeting the ECOWAS leaders had, it came through at that meeting that of all the ECOWAS countries, the 15 of them, only one of them have actually been able to meet the convergence criteria, and that was Togo. So would anything have changed between then and now, between September and now? I really doubt it. We just have to wait and see if there'll be any fresh development. But as to the urgency now to delink the CFA, these French-speaking countries now from the CFA, from the French currency, so to speak, that everyone says is very important and very, very urgent. But everyone also understands that it's not going to be easy to do that, because the processes involved would surely take time. But then the convergence criteria, Karen, it's very important. If out of 15 countries you have just one country meeting that convergence criteria, not even Nigeria has met it, then it's difficult to see how the single currency could come to fruition, even though the leaders have decided that, look, they could go ahead with the single currency, and that's for every country that is ready. But you just cannot go ahead with just one country, with just Togo. It's difficult to see that happening.
Okay, Deji, thank you very much for that. That was CGTN's Deji Badmus on the ECOWAS meeting, which is taking place in Abuja from tomorrow. Moving on to other news now. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the UN has expressed concern over living conditions of more than 2,000 people detained in a military camp in the east of the country. 21 of the detainees are reported to have died due to poor living conditions. They're being held in connection with rebel activities in the conflict-prone region. CGTN's Chris Ochemringa has that report from Kinshasa.
The Congolese army has arrested more than 2,000 people at Nyamunyinyi military camp in South Kivu province. They were arrested in an offensive against armed groups operating in eastern DRC. The detainees are accused of engaging in rebel activity, but the UN has voiced concern about the condition in which the suspects are being held. 21 of them are reported to have died due to limited access to food and water. The UN humanitarian coordinator, David McLachlan-Carr, has asked Congolese authorities to respect the suspects' rights. He says the UN is willing to support the DRC to protect fundamental rights of individuals in their military offensive against armed groups. The Congolese army launched a military offensive against armed groups in eastern DRC at the end of October. But there's been an increase in attacks against civilians in the eastern town of Beni since the launch of that offensive. The attacks have been blamed on members of the Allied Democratic Forces rebel group. Last month, locals in Beni staged protests against UN peacekeepers and Congolese forces for failing to protect them. The insecurity there has hampered efforts to contain the Ebola outbreak. Chris Ochemringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
A South African court has awarded damages to the family of a 5-year-old boy who fell and died in a pit latrine in 2014. The Court of Appeals has ordered the Department of Education to pay Michael Komape's family just over 1 million rand or $70,000. An estimated 4,500 schools out of a total of 25,000 have pit latrine toilets in various provinces in South Africa. CGTN's Yulisa Njumela has more.
5-year-old Michael Komape was a student at Metro Dumela Primary School in the province of Limpopo here in South Africa. One day in 2014, during school hours, Michael asked to go to the toilet, but he never returned. A teacher and the school got in touch with his parents to tell them that he was missing. His tiny body would subsequently be discovered several hours later by his mother in a dilapidated pit toilet. The pit toilet he was using at school had apparently collapsed while he was using it. Section 27, a legal advocacy group, had been doing work in that province at the time and discovered the dire state of sanitation in the province. They then took up the case on behalf of the family.
The day that Michael dies, the conduct of the state, one, Michael's body was left in the pit latrine, and Michael's mother is the one that discovers Michael's body in the pit latrine, and there's a very sad image that she paints, and she finds Michael's hand, stretching out for help, and that's how she discovers her son in the bottom of a pit toilet. And so, the conduct of the school was not very helpful. They wanted the body to stay in there until there were emergency services that could come. Michael's father also came trying to remove the body, and they didn't allow him to do that.
The Department of Education would later deny responsibility for Michael's death. The family, with the help of Section 27, later took the state to court. They demanded 3 million rand from the state and further wanted it to be compelled to provide decent sanitation at schools. The Court of Appeals ultimately granted the family just over 1 million rand.
We welcome the judgment that came from the Supreme Court of Appeal. One, because we recognize that this has been a very long process for the family. It's one that has stretched over a period of 5 years, and the family has really been through a long process. And so we welcome the judgment, and we think it's a just and fair judgment.
Michael's death in 2014 caused outrage in South Africa and drew attention to the lack of proper toilets in many schools, especially because there had been more children who also suffered like Michael. While Michael's family is well aware that the compensation will not bring their child back, they're relieved that the country's justice system helped them in some way.
The family was very happy. And why does the family feel happy? They feel happy because they feel that This is a recognition of the pain that they have suffered. This is a recognition of the fact that Michael's rights were violated, that the family's rights were violated.
The Komape family and Section 27 are now hoping that this matter will be put to rest. The Education Department says while it welcomes the outcomes of the court, it still needs a bit of time to study the contents of the judgment before it makes an official comment. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Researchers, scientists and environmentalists have debated the causes of climate change for years, and for decades many warned that Africa would be the most vulnerable continent. Those warnings have become a reality as countries across Africa battle severe and erratic weather patterns. South Africa has not been spared. Sumitra Naidu now reports.
This footage was taken by a motorist passing by. Tornadoes are rare to South Africa, but in the last month there have been 4 tornadoes in the KwaZulu-Natal province in the northeast of the country, each wreaking havoc and death. Climate change is a slow natural cycle that causes the Earth's temperature to rise and fall periodically over centuries. In southern Africa, temperatures have been rising steadily.
The most important observation we've made in southern Africa over the last 5 decades from a climate perspective is that temperatures are increasing, and they are increasing rapidly. So over much of South Africa, temperatures have increased by about 2 degrees Celsius over the last century. That is twice the increase that have occurred in terms of the global average temperature. This is a huge area of concern for Southern Africa because it means that we are also observing more and more heat waves in our region, and we are observing higher and higher frequencies of high fire danger days.
Just a few months ago, the city of Cape Town narrowly escaped day zero. The winter rain saved Cape Town from becoming the first metropolitan city in the world to run dry.
The Cape Town drought that almost led to a so-called day zero event, which meant that the city came very close to running out of water. That type of drought lasted for 3 years. Because of global warming and climate change, the risk for that type of drought to occur is already 3 times higher than what it is supposed to be.
There are growing concerns that South Africa and other countries, especially on the continent, are not preparing adequately for these climatic conditions.
There are 2 main things that need to happen in response to the increasing threats of global warming. Firstly, we need to mitigate global warming. That means we must reduce global warming, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming globally. We also need to reduce our reliance on coal as our main source of energy.
The South African government is working with industry and other stakeholders to develop response plans. In the meantime, many are dying as a result of flooding and other extreme weather phenomena. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
In Kenya, contractors working on Phase 2A of the standard gauge railway are improving the lives of those along the railway line through community projects. The SGR Corporate Social Responsibility Report for the year 2018-2019 shows that China Communication Construction Company has built classrooms, provided healthcare services and established water projects as it continues to build the railway. Wilkista Nyabwa reports.
A little bubbling jet of water quickly turns into a stream, gushing downhill toward the residential areas occupied by hundreds of households in Kajiado County on the outskirts of Nairobi. This is the Kimuka Oloshoibo water project. It has only been running for 2 months, but already residents are feeling its impact. During the second phase of the standard gauge railway project, workers from the China Road and Bridge Corporation struck water while drilling the Ngong Tunnel. The water was coming from an underground aquifer. The China Communication Construction Company decided to channel the water to households in the area.
They built some huge tanks with adequate capacity to serve over 10,000 people within and beyond the Kimuka area of Ngong.
Previously, only about 35% of households in the expansive Kajiado County had easy access to clean water. But now that is changing, with this project bringing piped water right to the doorsteps of residents here.
We used to travel long distances to get water, but now we only walk a few meters and we get water.
But that's not the only change that the standard gauge railway has brought residents in its path. The Standard Gauge Railway Corporate Social Responsibility Report 2018-2019 details the transformation that is taking place around the railway as the China Communication Construction Company contributes to the community's development.
Businesses cannot be sustainable if they are not having community at heart, and if they are not responding to their communities, and if they are not working well with the community.
During the construction, we have created more than 70,000 jobs opportunity for local people and contributed to a 1% of the GDP growth of the Kenya. And we have already shouldered our social responsibilities by improving water facilities for local residents, providing free medical service, building schools, and participating in emergency relief.
At Ereteti Primary School, located approximately 120 kilometers northwest of Nairobi, the construction company has erected new tuition and administration buildings, while Oloitip Primary School benefited from a medical camp organized by both Kenyan and Chinese doctors. Through partnerships that encourage skills exchange, the company continues to train young people and make a difference.
Today, after I saw the video of the CSR, what you did behind the scene, I think SGR is big, but CSR is even bigger.
These projects have helped to educate the locals on the benefits of the SGR while ensuring local ownership of the railway network. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN.
Well, now we're going to go over to Ucha for all the business news. Over to you.
Thank you, Karen. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. U.S. analysis of the attack on Saudi oil facilities points to Iran. And the South African sisters making waves in the male-dominated diamond sector.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, the United States says new analysis of weapons debris recovered from the attack on Saudi oil facilities indicates that the strike came from the north. This reaffirms the earlier assessment that Iran was behind the offensive. An interim report has confirmed that one of the drones traversed a location approximately 200 kilometers to the northwest of the attack site before hitting its targets. Now, the U.S. identified several similarities between the drones used in the raid and an Iranian-designed and produced unmanned aircraft, which is known as the IRN. However, the report noted that the analysis of the debris did not definitely reveal the origin of the strike that initially knocked out half of Saudi Arabia's oil production. Well, let's head to Tanzania now. The country has secured a $272 million loan from the African Development Bank to construct a new international airport in Dodoma. Now, this is part of the government's plan to expand infrastructure in the country. The new airport, which will handle a capacity of 1 million passengers annually, is expected to be built in Msalato over a period of 4 years. Now, the government recently shifted its administrative functions to Dodoma from the commercial capital of Dar es Salaam to speed up development. However, the measures set in place to ensure full implementation of economic reforms have been held back by red tape and corruption. Meanwhile, South Africa's National Treasury has announced plans to accelerate the restructuring of the country's power utility Eskom. This, of course, comes after ratings agency Fitch opted to keep the sovereign credit rating on hold with a negative outlook. The debt-laden state-owned firm has in recent times been plagued with wet coal and technical problems at other coal-burning plants. Now, this has also contributed to the crisis. Fitch, of course, warns that failure to implement a credible plan to stabilize the accumulating debt could prompt a downgrade. Now, this could in turn affect South Africa's economy. And staying in South Africa, a love for diamonds and entrepreneurship has driven two sisters to drop their careers as an investment banker and an optometrist. The duo now runs one of the few women-owned diamond polishing businesses in the world. Despite the global downtrend, the two have managed to keep their business thriving. They're also empowering other women to work in the male-dominated sector. Here's CGTN's Tuli Shabalala with the story.
Diamonds, a girl's best friend. For decades, entrepreneurs have carved a niche in the business with an aim of attracting customers to purchase the precious stones. However, for two sisters, they are working to prove that diamonds can also be the building blocks of a business empire.
With the dawn of democracy in South Africa in the early 1990s, it was quite interesting that opportunities started opening, and at that time I was working for one of the bigger banks as a stockbroker, and I sort of like reached my ceiling and then decided there's opportunities, more doors are open now for women to be in industries that were previously just meant for the elite few, and mining was one of them. And we obviously decided to go for a more niche area rather than going to your normal platinum and gold. Everybody was rushing that side.
The niche that these two sisters chose was diamond polishing and cutting. In South Africa's mining sector, it is predominantly curated by men. The duo started off their business after securing a certification as valuators in 2008. This has driven motivation amongst women to join the trade in a bid to contribute significantly to their communities.
Women empowerment is key, as we are a company that is women-owned as well. So we prefer working with women because we're never given a chance to actually express ourselves and be part of the economy. So this is our chance now to actually make it count. So that's why I usually I work with Kwame Diamonds.
Despite the passion, vision and mission, it is a scary time to be in the diamond business. According to analysts, in 1994, South Africa had 4,500 certified diamond polishers. That number has now fallen to 250. The statistics and the downward spiral in prices has not deterred them one bit. They have honed their way to the top by being part of the industry-leading De Beers Group.
And we've earned our stripes by the work that we produce. We've earned our stripes by the relationships that we have fostered with our clients. So we don't focus on the fact that we are in a male-dominated industry. We focus on making sure that we deliver and our work speaks for itself.
This is the type of spirit that we're looking to see come through. And obviously they're entrepreneurial, which is great.
They love the industry, which is even better. And I think that they've asserted themselves in the diamond industry. So they've risen above just being a diamond polisher or whatever into the managerial, into the ownership sphere of the diamond industry. And that's fantastic.
So what type of
The two sisters might reap great rewards as global consumer demand for diamonds rises. In 2018, it was estimated to have earned $76 billion as fast-growing regions increased their demand year on year. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Now, sub-Saharan Africa is considered to have the largest number of people who are living in extreme poverty, with over 400 million people living on less than $2 per day. While South Africa is the most developed country in the region, hunger remains a challenge. And of course, the country is food secure at a national level, but is still food insecure at a household level. But food and environmental groups are making progress in educating and training vulnerable communities on how to grow their own food. CGTN Sumitra Naidu visited a few community gardens and filed this report.
Africa's largest food retailer, Shoprite, has introduced an 18-month program to assist poor communities in the Western Cape with skills training in small-scale farming. Locals are taught everything from soil preparation, planting, harvesting, and how to run a small business.
But also our business does allow the food gardens to come sell at our stores, which offers them a market to sell and gain an income. As you can imagine, in this particular community where there's high levels of unemployment, it makes sense for them to come and sell at our stores, get an income, and be able to support their families.
This is one of several satellite gardens in this community. It essentially runs as a public-private partnership. So the municipality in this area loans the land and hires the workers, and a private investor, Shoprite in this instance, funds the project.
Local farming specialist Food and Trees for Africa goes out to teach, train and mentor communities in subsistence farming.
Biggest mistake I come across often, funnily enough, is overwatering. People think that you need to water your plants every day, and the more water you give them, the better. But you can actually drown your plants. You prevent them from taking in any oxygen in the roots, and plants actually do breathe in oxygen and carbon dioxide out, but that happens in the roots while they're photosynthesizing.
The beetroot arrives in seed form. We germinate the seeds to seedlings before we plant it into the ground. The seedlings stay in the ground for 3 months before it's harvested as beetroot.
Well, you'll see that the leaves are quite lush and turgid. They aren't very rubbery. This spinach is a bit overgrown here. You'll see this stuff. You can actually pull these younger leaves out, and what causes that is harvesting from the top. So what you should be doing is harvesting these lower leaves constantly to keep the growth on the top, and you'll get these nice woody stems, and that's a sign that you have a healthy spinach.
The community farming projects are also carefully selected to ensure optimum benefits. This farm was set up at a local public school. All produce is used to prepare meals for the children, and the excess is sold off.
The school has 1,300 learners who are benefiting from the CWP project. With the vegetables, we maintain 5 families, of which one household has 4 disabled members. Due to the drought, we can now only provide vegetables to the school, the crush across the road, and the 6 workers who maintain the vegetable gardens.
The
garden is very important as it serves the whole community. There are several community members who approach us for food, and we make them vegetable parcels to take with. The garden project also creates employment for me and other unemployed community members. The garden also supplies vegetables to the soup kitchen on the premises.
Subsistence farming can make a significant impact in poor and rural communities, not only to reduce vulnerabilities to hunger, but also climate change.
I hope everyone's growing at least 2 vegetables in their garden. One of the biggest things that will stop climate change is growing our own food. The sheer amount of transport that food goes through to get to your plate and processing is a massive contribution to climate change.
You can put a lot of things on one garden patch. You can have beetroot, squash and pumpkins, all the vegetables you need in your home. You can plant it in your yard on your own piece of land.
These community gardens started about 2 years ago, feeding thousands of people in the area. The local farmers have learnt invaluable skills that will ensure no one goes hungry here again. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But coming up later on Global Business Africa, a Nigerian solar-powered company raises $20 million to power business clusters in the country. We'll, of course, have all those details coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Karen.
Thank you very much, Uche. We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including a charity in Tunisia brings Christmas cheer to orphans.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Years of conflict and an Ebola outbreak left Africa's oldest independent republic devastated. Liberia is now trying to rebuild amid numerous challenges. From industry, health, and even culture. It's a story of resilience and hope. Join me, Susan Wongeli, as we take a look at how Liberians are charting a new path. Only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Christmas is around the corner and households around the world are getting ready for the festive season. In Tunisia, a special event is making sure that orphans aren't left out of the festivities and enjoy the holiday.
Christmas. It's a time for presents, cheer, and family. But for orphans in Tunisia, the holiday can bring about sad memories. While a Christmas market in Tunis is looking to make sure they have a day to remember.
So the idea came to us to make the children happy and also for us to be happy with them. We have a craft exhibition, as you can see. Books and chocolates in a festive atmosphere. We have decorated a Christmas tree, which is actually an olive tree. We also started a donation call. It's a special donation because it was in form of gifts. Parents and their kids also came and put their gifts under the tree.
Visitors are encouraged to donate wrapped gifts to the children. The event is organized by the Maghrebian Women's Magazine, B Tunsi Association, and SOS Children's Villages.
We are very happy to organize this event with our partner Women's Maghrebian. We did everything for the cause of the village and its children who really need help and support. We wanted to give them a little dream too. We are then going to help with all the money we've raised.
The funds will help the 1,000 orphans under the care of the SOS Children's Villages. Astatal, CGTN.
All the sports news coming up for you after the break, including Uganda thumped Eritrea 3-0 to lift 2019 CECAFA Senior Challenge Cup for record 15th title.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Uganda has won the 2019 CECAFA Challenge Cup by defeating Eritrea 3-0 in the finals played in Kampala in Uganda. The hosts have now extended their tournament record victories to 15. CGTN's Hilary Ayesaka reports.
Having not conceded a game in the tournament, Uganda were favourites against Eritrea. And that's how it panned out as the Cranes took on the Red Sea Camels.
We got the ball into the right areas of the field, and when you have quality players like we have, you know if you put the ball there, they'll eventually score the goal. So very pleased. I think they deserve this, and for a lot of them, hopefully it's the start of a few good years in the red of Uganda.
Eritrea was aiming to win the CECAFA Challenge Cup for the first time, but they couldn't go past the experienced Ugandan side.
It was a very good game. In all the games, they performed without any fatigue, good technically and tactically play they displayed.
Uganda has won the tournament a record 14 times. The tournament brings together countries within the East and Central Africa to compete for a regional trophy. But football critics say this year's tournament was not competitive as previous events.
You need to have a tournament that has strength across the board. And now that Eritrea has come up to this level, that should encourage other countries that, you know what, we need to step up and give Uganda a challenge. Because even with the fans, want Uganda to face a tough Kenya, a tough Tanzania, because that's the only way that Uganda can improve. But when you look at the region right now, Uganda is heads and shoulders above the rest. And at the end of the day, it doesn't help the region. I think that CECAFA needs to pull up its socks and try and see that the region improves, because clearly this region has really weakened.
And as the trainers go back to the drawing board, it's hoped that they will give players better tactics to win trophies. The record 15th CECAFA title for Uganda caps a perfect year for the country in the region. And the Cranes hope to build on the momentum for the African Nations Championships in Cameroon. Hilary Ayesaka, CGTN, Kampala.
Egyptian fencing star Alaa Abul Qasim is out to crown what is probably his last Olympics by winning gold next summer in Japan. Abul Qasim made history at London 2012 when he took silver to become the first African to win a medal in the sport. CGTN's Adel El Mahrouhi spent time with him as he launched his preparations for Tokyo 2020.
Born to an Egyptian father and an Algerian mother, Alaa Abul Qasim didn't have much choice in playing sports. Keen to find the perfect game for him, his parents took him through a huge tour of different sports.
When I was young, I had a tiny figure. I suffered from asthma, so my parents thought swimming would be a perfect fit. I moved to karate, then gymnastics. Still looking for an interesting sport, they pushed me to team games, volleyball, basketball, and football. I came to fencing by chance. Seeing a game where you wear a costume, hold a sword, and put on a mask, I think any kid would love it.
By the time he turned 8, the search was over. Abul Qasim specialized in foil fencing. Once he held his sword, no one could stop him from progressing. Before he knew it, the African title was no longer a challenge for him. By the year 2012, he has become the first African to win an Olympic medal in the sport.
There was a turning point in my sports career. Before the Olympic silver medal, no one in Egypt knew anything about fencing. It opened new horizons for me. I finished these Olympics with an injury which has kept me away for a year. In Rio, I was 1 point away from a medal. Hopefully, I can have a chance in Tokyo.
This year, Abul Qasim has won both the African Games and the African Championship. He's currently the 20th best player in the world, and thanks to him, Egypt is among the top 8 teams globally. His next mission is a gold in Tokyo. Adel El Mahrouhi, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, staying with Tokyo 2020, local organisers and the International Olympic Committee are yet to decide who will pay for the controversial move to Sapporo of the marathon and race walking finals. On Friday, organisers said contingency funds in the Tokyo 2020 budget cover only natural disasters and may not be used to pay for costs of moving events.
For the additional cost, we will of course discuss this with the IOC. If the IOC shoulders the cost of moving the marathon to Sapporo, then the Tokyo Organizing Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games will not contribute to this from the contingency fund, and the cost will be borne entirely by the IOC. In the discussion, if there is a part of the cost which cannot be picked up by the IOC, and it's something that TOCOG should bear, then we think it will come from the contingency fund.
Arsenal on Friday appointed their former captain Mikel Arteta as head coach on a 3.5-year deal. The 37-year-old won the FA Cup twice in a 5-year career with the Gunners and succeeds fellow Spaniard Unai Emery, who was sacked in November. Arteta had been working as a coach under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, joining the club in 2016 after retiring as a player, and was confirmed as the Arsenal boss ahead of their visit to Everton in the early Saturday English Premier League fixture. Guardiola has tipped Arteta to perform well at the side, languishing 10th in the table. The City manager is hoping his third-place champions can